it's telling me I'm live. Record broadcast. Okay, so here we go. I am live. All right. And I'm pretty stable. So I know this is kind of strange. Could someone type in anything into the chat because I don't see where my chat window is located. Just put in anything so see if I can see it. I might have to open up. I might have to open up my own chat window as a outsider. Really? Okay. Okay. Uh, yeah. See, I'm not getting any on my end. I'm not seeing the problem. My sound is good. My imaging is good. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. I'm gonna pop out for just a moment and see if this works. Sorry. Uh, what a terrible video to show if somebody comes along for the first time, but whatever. All right. We are testing something new for the streaming here. So if this is your first time seeing this and you're just like, "What the hell?" Believe me, there's plenty of slightly better videos on on the channel elsewhere. So yeah, today we're doing. The purpose of today was to talk about some island adventures and some of the goings on thereof. But apparently, I'm having some streaming difficulties. All right, I'm back on. I'm back in the. There we go. Connected. Yep, I should be connected. All right, and I stuttered. Fuck. Yep. Yeah. All right. Wow, and I can't even keep the chat window open for Discord. Damn it. All right. Let me pop out of the voice channel and see if that works, and then I can still see the messages. So let me disconnect here. All right. uh. Anyway, that was a bit of an issue. All right. Creatives, community, kind folks out there, hello. Welcome to RPG with DBJ and all of the problems that happen having a weekly live stream. All right, so last week the show was off because I was on vacation, and I thought I would talk about island adventuring, and we kind of talked about it yesterday. There wasn't a show, but we still talked about the greatest parts of having of being on the islands and running an island slash piracy, sailing the high seas kind of adventuring. And some of the things we basically came up with was it's a great way to create a world setting where you could pass it off to different people. All you have to do is just have your PCs go from one island to another. Each island can be its own ecology, so you're not really limited by needing to keep things within, one island could be a mountain and another one could be a jungle or a desert or whatever you want to come up with in your own world. And lastly, there's a excellent excuse to have your players motivated to do things because every island probably has a want, and any other island can fulfill that need, and then you can always include a third party. There goes my me using my triangle references again. And a third party can always be there to facilitate the transfer of one from a want from one location to a need to the other location, whether it's physical resources, food, water, shelter, minerals, anything of that nature, some kind of magical mineral or something of that nature, and whether they're personnel, slaves, military, soldiers, wizards, or anything like that. So, but can't get past the third pillar of tabletop gaming. Now, I am your self-appointed third pillarist, and my point about using the third pillar of gaming, yeah, dead man, yeah. My point about the third pillar of gaming is that, yeah, I see the hesitation right now. There we go. I've got my chat window open there. All right, my hesitation about the third pillar of game. I mean, my point about third pillar of gaming is the third pillar of exploration. Now, the third pillar of exploration, for the most part, is generally thought of as like silly, silly Scott. The is that the environment itself is like that third leg of a table. You know, you can't set up a table with two legs unless you balance it on something else, which would be that third leg, which would be the third pillar. And for me, going a little more niche, I'm a very visual person. I love action movies, and if you really want to change things up, it's about having your combat, having your exploration, even having some of your social interactions in very unique circumstances. And island exploration is an excellent method to introduce your players to different physical hazards that are around them that are not necessarily another monster or in other words, it's like a combination of like trap, puzzle, lair, riddle, obstacle, and all those things put together. Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Spencer says island exploration is fantastic. Boats and their durability. Yep. You give PCs a boat, and you are guaranteed to motivate them every single time. They are going to want to upgrade their boat. They're going to want to have a crew. They are going to get absolutely pissed at anybody that tries to damage their boat, try to burn it down, charge them for docking fees. They're going to want to fill the hold with things and take it from one place to another. They're going to want to chase people down. They're going to want to run from people and, sail away and all that kind of stuff. So boats are excellent things. So Mr. Spencer goes on to say supplies and their use both as bartering goods and locals, because who cares about gold on an isolated island? Exactly. And that way, instead of just using the typical gold piece, you can have salt could be very important, or bamboo, or wood, or pigs and boars, or exotic birds, or and then we can go very arcane with it. Maybe there are powerful eggs that are we talked about before, about powerful eggs that are I was going to say antique. They are like fossilized eggs that, when taken to another island, might be very powerful. Hey, Harry, what's going on there? Long time. And Rickard, yes, you guys are bringing up. Mr. Spencer says food tracking, resource harvesting on the islands. Yes, getting food, despite being in the ocean, clean water, simply surviving, say, high humidity or extreme cold, losing resources, because you guys are going to bring up things like lesser tsunamis, such as tides. They can be quite devastating as well. Simply landing on an island with your craft, a high tide, low tide, depending on what kind of shore. Is it a sandy beach or a rocky shore? Is it a protected bay or extremely tall cliffside with smashers smashing up against the rock and such? Um, Harry Shore says, Paradise has 5 volcanoes. Yeah, many islands, especially down in the Southern Caribbean, and you start talking about Hawaii and the Ring of Fire. Those islands are made by volcanoes, and volcanoes can be come in all shapes and sizes, not just those large peaks blasting something out the top of them, but poisonous gases. They are part of and run along the side of earthquakes. There's lava flows. There's heavy debris. You can have the landscape can shift and change by splitting and causing rock slides and all that kind of stuff. Now, as an aside, of course, we over at Critical Hit Publishing pushed out The Blasted Lands, which is a whole book dedicated to basically volcanism and everything that's involved in it, from broken everything from like acidic lakes and pools to pyroclasms and all that other kind of stuff. Mr. Spenzar says, in a Star Wars campaign I ran on the planet of Felucia, the party crashed in a massive orchard with bizarre-looking fruits. The party tried them one by one. Some hurt them, others healed. Others attracted local fauna that the party used as mounts. Ooh, I like that. Fruit. Hell, you can do so much with local remedies because of naturally growing plants and animal byproducts, right? Picking fruits and nuts, seeds, roots from trees or the bark of said trees, or some of the flora and fauna could be both harmful and beneficial. So a flower might produce some kind of like toxic pollen, but if you're able to get the nectar, it could be harvested into healing potions or something. And of course, all of those things don't need to be used as quote unquote potions, right? I'm looking at you, aloe vera plant for abrasions and burns. Man, you just grab the leaf and you crack it, and there's a fluid inside used for wounds. Thanks, Rickard. Yeah, it says audio works nice though. Okay, I'll talk to my internet provider because I think I'm being throttled is what I'm thinking. But yeah. Thanks, God. Hilarious. Thank you, man. Yeah, and that's the other thing too. Like Dead Man said, I don't watch the video stream, just monitor the chat and the Discord chat. Yeah, hell, me too. I don't even look at myself when I'm doing these videos because who wants to look at that ugly mug? But because it's like at least an hour, I'm sure a lot of people are taking it in through their ear holes, so that's fine. As Mr. Spenzar says, when the party is riding massive slugs, not because they're faster, but because they smell awful and the other fauna of the forest avoids them. 10 out of 10. Yeah, you know what? I love stuff like that, right? I mean, when you have island adventures, that's the other thing you can add to it, where you could test the waters of trying out different environments for your players without necessarily ruining your game by giving your players something that you're afraid is going to affect something else. Point of fact, riding giant slugs. Let's say you wanted to you've always wanted to try mounted combat, and you wanted to give your players you've always wanted to try to give your players mounts, whether they're like dinosaurs or you have a collection of mounts, some of them fast, some slow. Like Mr. Spenzar says, riding massive slugs, not because they're fast, because they smell awful, and it keeps like the dangerous fauna and other other predators away from them. Maybe there's an animal that screeches and creates some kind of like sound, much like, or maybe you're riding on a giant skunk and every other predator knows what that skunk can do. You know, you could give your players or give them access to mounts, and of course you'll have people who are living on the island, whether they're other settlers or invaders or natives or what have you, and you're like, man, I really want to try these rules, and if it doesn't work, it's not a big deal. Now, sure, your players may say, oh, I want to keep my giant triceratops as my mount, but of course you have the issue of trying to get it onto a sailing craft like a ship, putting it in the hold, going to another place, which might be too problematic, which is the whole point of having the islands in the first place. You leave the mount behind, you go to another island, the next day you have something else, and it's also islands make a very excellent in media res, right? In the middle, where you can start an adventure by just saying, oh, you've just arrived at shore to the island of, or the uncharted island of, or after being swept away in a massive storm, you arrive on the island of, and then just go from there. You don't have to worry about the travel time or anything. But if you are interested in it, because this is Third Pillar Thursday, tsunamis, hurricanes, tornadoes, volcanic activity, which is kind of posted in the it's in the thumbnail information. Those are the kind of things I'm talking about, where you can have torrential rain. Right now, I understand using Fifth Edition as the world's most popular role playing game. They have something known as difficult terrain, and while that's okay, it's pretty boring. It's much like going into a supermarket and you go down the aisle and they have like the cheapest products, where it's like it's like a white label that just says canned food. It doesn't even tell you what's in it. It's just like it's the bare bones stuff, but maybe you want some other options. So for me, it's just thinking logically about things. Like, islands allow you to add aquatic adventures in there without necessarily being completely underwater. Scott Poe says, start off where Deep Rising leaves off. Yeah, I mean, okay, so with aquatic adventures, of course, you have anything and everything that's underwater and the effects of that. Now there are limited rules for underwater, but you can always mix things around. For example, if you are a spellcaster underwater and you have something that's verbal, you probably only get a chance to perform your verbal action once, and then you start drowning, right? How many highly armored, heavy equipment carrying individuals and or character races that might be massive? Do they float? Do they sink to the bottom? What kind of weaponry can be used underwater? That dwarven hero barbarian with this giant hammer might not be very effective, but someone with a spear or a trident or a crossbow, like a harpoon gun, would probably be far more effective. Because the reason why I know this is because in many games they'll tell you, like, piercing weapons are much better than your slashing, which is probably better than your blunt weapons and things. And then, of course, you have the idea of casting a fireball underwater. Is it effective? Yes, no. Is it mitigated? Probably. At a minimum, everything is probably has resistance underwater, if not outright canceled. Although those characters with like electrical abilities are probably going to be the characters with storm and electrical abilities are your pyromancers of the aquatic world, right? You fire a lightning bolt and it's going to like fry everybody, right? Mr. Spenzar says the shore is where the mystery meets the known. Foreign visitors, when it's things arriving on your shore, or strange new worlds when you arrive on other shores. Yeah, someone, Dead Man, help me out. If I'm not mistaken, there has been the Aztec natives of Central and South America, I believe, couldn't comprehend the ships of the conquistadors when the Spaniards arrived on their shores. And there's something related to that where the native peoples looked out into the water and they, because of their culture and beliefs, they kind of didn't understand what was happening when humanity arrived on ships. I know there's something about that, but yes, you, there's nothing stopping. That's another great thing about Island Adventures is that the PCs are not the only people sailing around in ships, right? You can set up a constant rivalry or adversarial relationship with other resource extractors or members of their own faction that think the PCs are not performing their job, or other governmental agencies, or just enemies that the PCs have created, and they can always arrive on shore simultaneously, maybe nearby. Maybe they arrive on the other side of the island. They can arrive after the PCs have been there for a week or two. They could be off the coast and just pausing. No one, then they and drop anchor, and no one knows why they're there. Maybe they send smaller dinghies with agents and such, and you, especially if you're going very exotic, the ships can be different. They can be of massive sizes. They could be 4, 5, and 6-story vessels carrying thousands of individuals. If you want to go, if you want to go aircraft carrier and battleship carrier size, that kind of things. Yeah, Rickard talks about the helicopter that found the jungle tribe, and the people look up and don't understand what they're seeing. And this is a great way for you as a GM to introduce things that the PCs don't understand, whether it's magic or creatures or individuals and such that are, like, for example, on one island, the PCs may think, well, werewolves and lycanthropy is dangerous and evil, but then they meet a tribe of people and they are completely lycanthropic. They shape change into, I'm going to be very stereotypical here. They shape change into jaguars and feathered snakes and frogs and lizards and crocodiles and things like that as a matter of course. And what a great way to have the PCs interact in the world in a way in which it changes their expectations, where there may be a tribe of trolls, and the tribal trolls are easy to get along with, and they buy and sell and trade, they barter with items, and the PCs are like, we're used to killing trolls, and the trolls are just like, we're just here to trade some spices and foodstuffs. What do you guys have, Yeah, and with Mr. Spenzar talking about the shores where the mystery meets the known, it's like, when you have foreign visitors, the moral quandary of the PCs encountering the very personable trolls when an adversary shows up, not necessarily an enemy, but an adversary shows up and goes, oh, they're trolls. Thanks for finding this tribe of trolls. We're going to go off and kill them. We really appreciate you finding them because, trolls are evil, so we're going to have to go and kill them. And the PCs are like, well, actually, technically, no, but, whatever. Miss Scott says, instead of just drowning everyone, they could be crowding with enemies into the broken halves of the ship and half-empty shipping crates all holding precious bubbles of air and sinking. Yeah, I mean, hell, just having an encounter on a ship itself, right? So in still waters, you can still, again, I'm going to bring up something silly, right? Where people are like, oh, the push and shove technique in 5th edition is stupid because if you knock someone prone or knock them 5 feet, they can just get back up. And I'm like, yeah, but where are you shoving them, right? Someone with 120 hit points, you're going to have to hit them 10 times if you're doing 12 points damage. But if you kick them in the chest and kick them off the deck of a ship by shoving them 5 feet over the deck, that might be more effective than hitting them 10 times, right? So it's about effectiveness and where you're at. It's not knocking someone down, it's like, or pushing someone away, but it's where do you do it? Do you knock them down into the hold of the ship? Do you knock them off the crow's nest while you're having a sword fight on the upper mast of the ship trying to balance on the beams? Do you knock them over the edge of the ship? can that thing swim or sink that you kick over the edge? Is it a golem that you kicked over the edge, or is it another pirate that's like, damn it, and they got to grab a rope and climb the hell back up, right? Giving you enough time to gather your wits or what have you, and then you tack onto that because you have heights on a sailing vessel, right? You can climb, swing on ropes. You can have lots of props around for Tesla. Yeah, make an OSHA roll. Yeah, governmental agency slips. Watch out for the slips, trips, and falls. Everyone, open up your trifold picture binder and grab your flotation devices. But yeah, I mean, and look at all the props you have. Ropes you can tie around someone's neck or foot or get tangled in and have them, and then someone else grabs the rope and pulls them up into the mast, choking them off, or using your blade to cut the ropes on a sail and having it drop down on an enemy, and then you can give them a blanket party or something. Pushing a barrel of, whatever it's filled with, whether it's salted fish or flaming oil or tar and pitch or something, and letting that roll down across the deck of the ship and knock people down, or throwing that same barrel and having it split open and become something that's adhesive or slippery or flammable, or all three, hell, open up a barrel of salted fish and that's going to be pretty damn slippery on a wet deck of a ship anyway, right? So then you have the hold. So of course you might be in daylight. You kick someone down the steps or into the cargo hold, so then maybe it's dark down there. You have tight spaces, so maybe in a tight space it's hard to maneuver around individuals. Maybe it cuts off those opportunity attacks that keep happening. You have a lot of cover in the down in the cargo hold, and even on the upper deck of a classic pirate ship. And then you take that ship, you put it into a storm where maybe each round people have to make deck saves, or they fall prone, or they fall off the edge of the ship, or maybe there's a giant wave. You give it a DC or a strength check or something to hold on so you don't get knocked off or something. Add to that a massive storm and torrential rain. And torrential rain could, of course, put out fires, reduce visibility, disrupt ranged attacks by blowing those thrown spears and fired arrows out of the sky, bolts of lightning. I mean, you go on and on and on and on. Mrs. Spenzar says, talking about the Aztecs and boats, says they'd never seen something like the boats. They were so outside their realm of understanding that their brains weren't able to explain what they saw. I thought that was the case, that they actually could not understand what it was that they saw. And with island encounters, we can add a level of civility to things that normally don't have civility attached to them, like the troll tribe, or some kind of aquatic, like either merfolk that are able to walk on land, or maybe you just reskin them as like Sahogan or lizard folk or something. Maybe they ride in hermit crab type vessels that are like tanks that walk out of the deep ocean and up onto the shore, and maybe there are air pockets inside of them or something. I mean, you could do all kinds of things. And again, maybe those aboleths are traveling with the mind flayers in your world, and they are aquatic species that just comes on land. They don't come from an outer world. They just live down in the deep. They come up to get supplies on land. I mean, you could do all kinds of things. Mr. Spencer says were tribes, talking about the were creatures, right? Were natives. He says they worship their totemic creature, hunt the largest specimen of its species in the woods as a ritual where they kill it and then take on the aspects of it through grisly rituals. I love that because it doesn't even make it like a biological thing, but the greatest hunters want to hunt down the jaguar that's it's more than a jaguar. Maybe that jaguar is like a has the aspects of like a devil dog or a winter wolf or a displacer beast or saber-toothed tiger. Like it's a massive thing that's out there. Or even you could even reskin a manticore or a sphinx or something as this jaguar that's out in the woods, and they go after it, and when they kill it, maybe they have to eat its heart or drink its blood or something in a ritual, and then they become take on the aspects of that creature. And for good or bad, maybe this is just a normal thing. Yeah, they're easy to associate with until you start seeing them drinking the hearts of their enemies, and then you're like, ooh, yeah, no. Right. Scott Poe says, if it's an Imperial vessel, it won't have railings. Yeah. Oh, the age-old complaint. Like, wait, what? No railings? Yeah, we're gonna spend all of our time to construct this massive fortress or ancient tomb or something. But yeah, when it comes to railings and stairs, yeah, we're just not gonna. Nah, that person was asleep at the time. Oh, sorry, Rickard. Yes, has got to see it now. Dead Man Talks posted in the Discord about Wikipedia has a page dedicated to the Spanish meeting or conquering the Aztecs. I gotta read that because if I'm not mistaken, that was an issue. And I don't know what your opinions are of Mel Gibson, but he directed a movie called Apocalypto, which I found it's an excellent movie. And of course, it came out at a point where he had some ramblings that offended a major group of people. So your opinion and consumption may vary, but if you don't mind, if you could put that aside, or you want someone who's like, yeah, I haven't seen that movie, Apocalypto is excellent, and it is. I mean, it's all about Aztecs and jungles and all that kind of stuff. As a matter of fact, I love the idea of the people who wear the face masks backwards on the back of their heads so that they are not pounced on by other predators, because the masks look like eyes that can see them. And while that's not something that's written in a rule, much like using a torch to drive off, say, being surrounded by hungry wolves in a forest, it is the kind of thing that those are the kind of things, you hear where I'm going there, Mr. Spencer, where it's a cultural way of survival, and I think that's a great way to offer up not just learning how to survive in a location, but maybe there are even some strange magic items or something, or not necessarily magical, but pseudo-magical. They are an effective way of doing something. I'm not exactly sure what kind of magic item you could create with a mask that you wear backwards, unless you can see out the back of your head. But that's the first thing that comes to mind, where you can see out the back of your head. But that's still a great thing to. That's just one tiny thing that you can add into your game. Now, Mr. Spencer says the enemies of the Aztec didn't know who the conquistadors were, but they were tired of having their tribesmates stolen to be sacrificed to the sun god that the Aztec worship. Yeah, the enemy of my enemy, right? It's the, okay, so let's see. We can still have our people captured and sacrificed to the sun god by having them strapped across an altar and having their hearts cut out until an eclipse happens. Or we could try to befriend these foreign invaders that are carrying around rods that shoot death out of them. Yeah, Scott says advantage on perception or can't be flanked. The reverse mask, I would go with that. Or maybe there are variations. Maybe it's based on the workmanship of those masks. But yeah, I'd do that. Yeah, why not? Maybe dark vision out the back of your head. It's kind of weird. Mr. Spenzar says, tiger's ears from behind look like eyes. The masks facing backwards is the same principle. Yeah. I love those little details that are not. It's just a weird thing to say, but I love the narrative details that aren't gameable until you make them gameable in the within the game, right? So when the PC, let's say there's some PCs that are like, I'm not wearing a mask that's facing backwards. Now you as a game master can say, okay, well, everyone who's not wearing those backward facing masks and doesn't notice you're being hunted by these predators, tigers or whatever in the jungle, you're going to be a target, right? It's thunder drums, what natives call guns. Yeah, I mean, such a such great historical, not great for the people at that time, but great historical facts we can pull from, but uh, that we can pull from and add to our stories based on the interactions of the examples we have from our own world. So I really like it. Scott Post says immune to gaze attacks while fighting backwards. Uh, I have no idea what mechanic that is. Is that a mechanic? You, yeah, I, whatever. I love it. You could have a whole. You could create, say, for this one island nation, a whole culture based around the creation and use of these masks, whether they are facing forward or backwards, right? Put on a face mask forward, and you can go fight the Medusa that lives out in the jungle. Maybe the Medusa doesn't turn you into stone, or maybe she does. Maybe there's statues covered in moss and fungus and vines that people might find, or maybe the Medusa turns you into something else, equally petrifiable, whether it's like a totemic statue or a gemstone or a tree or marble or just a plain old rock. Doesn't look human, just turns into a rock. Like you could just reskin the petrification thing. Maybe you just become frozen or what have it. It doesn't matter. It could be anything. Maybe even turn you into an animal or something that she takes with her or whatnot. Mr. Spinzar says it could be as simple as the mask grants the player immunity to flanking. Yeah, yeah. You know, that rogue wants to sneak up on everybody, and it's like, why is everyone wearing their mask backwards? And like, yeah, your sneak attack is no, right? Deadman says the hyenas in Africa would avoid animals that were taller than they are. So a short child with a piece of wood would be safe as long as the kid kept the piece of wood held aloft. I did not know that. I know hyenas are intelligent and vicious too, man, but I didn't know that. And here's yet one more piece of information, right? Someone, maybe staves and spears and things are topped with some kind of like scarf or mask or oriflame or oriflame, oriflame, whatever. You know the staves with the skull and other things tied to it that's held aloft, and maybe there's a reason why something like that is carried around by tribes people, and stuck into the ground while they sleep or something, and they're like, why? You don't need to do that. And they're like, yeah, you do, because if you knock it down, those hyenas as are surrounding us, they're going to come in, while we're trying to get some sleep. So, but let's get back to the environment and such. So I talked about rainstorms, talked about aquatic and being on the ship. So let's move on to a shoreline, whether it's a beach, a sandy beach with soft sand and a warm sun, all the way to, say, something more rocky like Ireland with tall cliffs and a rocky coast or something like that. All of that stuff is pretty, can be pretty horrible in an environment, especially if there's something going on where the PCs or the enemies or what have you are fighting on, say, a sandy beach. Maybe that slows down running speed. A little difficult to run on soft sand. There could be a tide that comes in and out that's very strong with like 10, 30-foot wave caps, white capped waves that may come in periodically every round, or you roll a die, like a D4, and every random round, this massive wave will sweep in, and those who fail strength or dex saves or whatever, maybe they're swept towards land or swept out to sea. Maybe you apply a movement rate to it that where the minute you're hit by it, you're swept away, which means that the two people facing off against each other might be stretched like 500 paces away from each other after the wave crests and splashes and smashes against the rocky shore and goes back out to sea, which of course, you might have people who are dropping items or losing something in their hand or losing sight of something that's floating on the surface of the water or covered by sand and whatnot. You also have climbing difficulties up and down cliff sides. If you're on a beach, again, pushing someone down into the water or tripping them or drowning them, grabbing someone and pushing their face down in the water and just choking them out or something. It could be a very effective method of taking someone out. And also with storms, if you're talking about storms, now you could have let's say an aquatic earthquake which causes a tsunami, in which case you're not going to see anything in the air, like you're not going to see thunderstorms or anything like that, but you will see the shoreline retreat as the water gets pulled into the massive wave that's going to sweep across the beach and the coastline. And you might even want to foreshadow that, foreshadow the hell out of that. Yeah, Mr. Spencer says, yep, using waves during a scramble for the MacGuffin is a classic. Yep, scramble for that MacGuffin. I mean, the whole idea of, and foreshadowing these kind of things is a great way to add tension, to get rid of that analysis paralysis, because I'm a big proponent of like using anything in your toolbox to get your players to keep moving. And one of those things is the MacGuffin could be a captured prisoner, the captured princess, a chest of gold, that one magic item, or anything like that. And it might be on the beach. Here comes a giant wave. Do you run down to get the thing or to collect your allies to then run up to high ground before the wave strikes, right? And how many times have we seen that in a movie? That's a classic, right? Like you said, that the scramble for the MacGuffin is a classic, and the whole idea of getting to high ground or picking up the item or grabbing the person that's in shackles and then running with them to hide behind a rocky outcrop or run into a grotto or something of that nature. As a matter of fact, you can even do, yep, Scott Post says combat on a sandy beach would have so much sand kicking into the air. Watch your eyes. Oh, how many times have we seen that? Grabbing the sand and throwing it into the eyes of your opponent or something, right? And if your PCs don't do it, have your orc barbarian or whatever do that to your PCs and just like Wilson. Yeah, I remember that. Oh, but what a great movie. I at the time, in hindsight, we found out that it was a classic. But yeah, Tom Hanks and Castaway, and his best friend Wilson. Yeah, it was sad too. I mean, it was super sad, especially when he lost Wilson when he got off the island. It was like, wow. But if you really, even that movie showed some of the horrors of having to live on an island alone by yourself and trying to survive. It's really, wow. Of course, we have ourselves with our islands. If you have an island, doesn't necessarily need to be flat, so you got lots of climbing. You have lots of foliage that you have to go through if it's a more of a tropical island type of island, as opposed to one that's maybe barren and rocky. You can incorporate things like pools and eddies, grottos. So instead of a classic dungeon, you could have an underwater cavern system that's exposed based on the tide, and then use the rising and falling tide as your measurement tool to get your players to hurry up into, explore, and get the hell out of a cavern. So the tide may go low, they go into the cavern, they realize that there's water going into the caverns as they go around in it, they fight some enemies, the water level starts to rise, and lo and behold, you have sphincter clenching, inducing environment where the PCs are in. I'm take this off of Mr. Spenzar's comment about the scramble for the MacGuffin classic. I'm going to say the flooding chamber is a classic trope as well. Whether you're trapped inside of a submarine or sinking ship or a cave or a room where the water is slowly rising and you start to, now it's waist level and you have some kind of predators or something sliding around by your feet. We saw that in Star Wars in the trash compactor scene. You have the water level gets up to head level and everyone's panicked and they're trying to get some, find a place to breathe, and of course someone has to dive down under the water and swim for some unknown exit, and are they able to hold their breath long enough to get to that exit? And how do your friends help you? Do you breathe air from your lungs into your friends when they start to get ready to pass out or something? And do you swim in your plate mail and your heavy backpack, or what the hell goes on? So yeah, sphincter inducing, those that's another one that's a really great trope that you can put in your back pocket. And is it a trope? Hell yeah. But is it useful? Of course. Gotta have those tools. And so now that we're on land and we've gotten off our storm-tossed ship, we swam to the shore, we've gotten a shoreline, we've gotten to our tropical island, we're hacking through the foliage and such. You can also, like I brought up with the torrential rainstorms and thunderstorms, so you could have like a monsoon season. You could have anything from flash floods to rock slides in your environment, as well as, again, lots of flora where semi-sentient plants or plants, the purple plants are poisonous, the pink plants are actually helpful, everything's pretty much green, but if you don't go near the black fronds, because those are the ones that are like necrotic, whereas then there's like assassin vines and shriekers and what are some other plants, violet yellow fungus, or what's the yellow zombie creating fungus in. Anyway, you can toss in all that kind of crap, right? And start to get the PCs to use lots of their skills that, side note, there are many games in which people complain that some skills are far more important or useful or even used than others. And here's a great opportunity to take the environment and have those skill checks or skill challenges. Zombie ants. Yeah, we talked about the other day, man. We talked about burying somebody and a tree grows over top of that person's body and they start to walk. Okay, so we got man-eaters, yellow musk creeper, that's it, that's the one. The assassin vines, yep, you can throw all that stuff onto islands. And of course, you can put them in little groves, so it's not that the entire island is covered with them, but if you make those successful survival or nature checks, or instead of perception checks, you start mixing. Okay, perception, you notice a detail, but investigation or nature or survival gives you the information that you need pertaining to what you just saw. So someone could notice movement or a color or the shape or the distance of something, but they may not know the context of what they're seeing. So maybe your elf scout in the group is very perceptive. Hey, over that ridge, I noticed this color, or I saw a puff of smoke, or there's pollen in the air, or the plants here have a strange moss growing on their eastern side. But maybe the ranger who's following along with that elf is like, yeah, I didn't see that, but most likely, if there's moss growing on the east side of it, it means that and then you fill and start filling in the blanks. The puff of smoke means those are natives. They're using it to communicate. That yellow musk that's in the air. Yeah, we're getting near a grove of yellow musk creepers. We're going to have to watch out for zombified natives that were killed and then reanimated to come after us and such. And we've talked about reskinning. You could have a necromantic, say, shaman or warlock or witch, but not using necromancy, but instead using a plant-based necrology through alchemy or herbalism or apothecary or something of that nature. So you could reskin your undead as plant-based. You could reskin plant-based things as being undead. So if you find a grove of dead trees and foliage, maybe they are spreading a necromantic withering disease of some sort. So you could have zombie ents and such. Yeah, or even a necromantic dryad or something. Mr. Spenzar puts in the cordyceps. Cordyceps. Oh, what are vegapygmies? Or it might be in there, and myconids, the mushroom people. Myconids you could throw in there as well. But you could mix and match any of those things together, right? You could take something. You could have plant-based orcs if you want in your island, if that's where you want to go with it. You know what I mean? A troll could be plant-based as well if you wanted to do that. Deadman puts in the chat a cordyceps. I better not click that because I already have a really bad stream here. At least if the audio's good, that's all that really matters. There's. I don't know. I just feel like island adventures are something you can put in your back pocket and pull out anytime, especially if you have a group with multiple DMs and you're getting a little burnout. You can always just go, okay, guys, I know I've been running this adventure and I know we've got like 3 sessions under our belt, but I'm just not feeling it today. Something happened at work. There was, one of my pets died, or I just found out I was diagnosed with something. Maybe there's something bad that happened to you. I'm stressed out. Hey, can someone take over? And like, yeah, I'm going to make an island and have my own adventure on it. Cool. And just in media res, your ship is anchored off the coast. You need to collect supplies. You're on the island and go. PCs go through the adventure. They end. Get back to the ship. Boom. Slip right back into the old adventure again. Back into the old shipping lanes or whatever it is. Mr. Spenzar says, cordyceps are a parasitic fungus. I like them for mixing with trolls or other undead. I'm going to tell you, Mr. Spenzar, that I am getting to the end of writing the next cinematic environs book. We've titled it, we're pretty much set on wetlands, but we might go further with that. And believe you me, we have plenty of parasites in it. Everything from tongue-eating louse to bot flies to zombie ant fungus. There's a lot of parasites and diseases in it, and they're pretty nasty. Which you can really build some really great BFF creatures, meaning because you brought up like mixing parasitic fungus with trolls or other undead. I mean, you've got to mix. There's nothing greater than having a zombie than filling the zombie's stomach with like snakes or insect hives, or filling zombie stomach with like an ooze and like all that kind of stuff. Mr. Spencer says plant intelligence versus undead intelligence gives fun play. The undead are afraid of fire. Why? Because they're being controlled by fungus. Yeah. I'm assuming you're wondering what I just mentioned. I'm a contributing writer to Critical Hit Publishing, and my project is the Cinematic Environs book series, and that series details like there's There's aquatic depths, Arctic reaches. It's each of the natural environments is an individual book, and we meaning myself, Alex, who's a great writer and layout, and Rob, who is our editor, and but I'm the project manager on it. So we're going through each natural environment, and then at the end, we're going to take all the environments and put them together into one massive hardback tome. So, yeah, that's I don't just live stream. I'm actually I'm actually a, a, a game producer. Now, the funny thing is that the cinematic environment series actually sparked Alex to start doing his version. So the books are written for fifth edition, although you could really make them for any edition of Dungeons and Dragons. And actually, if you want to ignore the rules, you can make them. You can just use them, pick them up for any game. But he's producing the cinematic environments for Call of Cthulhu, the latest edition of Call of Cthulhu. So they've been rewritten and reskinned for that purpose. So they include things like the Arctic book includes things like using planes and cargo ships and snowmobiles and things like that. So, oh, I didn't know that, dude. Oh, you got five. Oh, wow. I did not. Oh, I did not know that. Oh, all right. Anyway, that's a good segue for the end of this broadcast. Thank you guys for tolerating the hiccups and the false starts and things like that. I'm gonna have to talk to my internet provider to get them to unthrottle me because I don't know why I'm only getting a 10 and 1. But whatever, we'll figure it out. At least the audio is good, and for good or bad, at least I'm out here. And the only reason I'm able to do this is because you guys join me. So, thank you very much, everyone out in the in the social sphere. Thank you for joining me. Your time is very valuable. I'm glad you could spend it with me, and I hope you guys are able to leave with just a little bit of change.